I'm Mark DeGrasse, and it's Podcast Mark, where I talk to friends and colleagues about personal development, professional development, and business development in that order, finding the intersection between all three, and usually ending up with life philosophy and parenthood, which is where we usually go. So welcome, Dustin.
Hey, thanks, Mark. Good to be here. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. I think we are both a digital marketer for a bit, and now we're both rolling on with our individual projects. I think, you've been, how long has it been? Has it been 6 months or way longer than that?
No, probably about that. It was, I think it was June or July of 2023. So like,
No, 2020.
yeah,
Okay.
6, 7 months, something like that.
That's not bad. Yeah, because sometimes I confuse 2022 and 2023, where I'm like, I don't
It all blends together.
know
I don't know.
what happened. But it's you seem to be rolling. I see you online all the time. You're hustling, you're getting your business going. And before the podcast, you kind of mentioned that you had a podcast that you had started last year and then kind of fell
Yeah.
off, and you're bringing it back. So I thought we could kind of talk about some of these projects that you get rolling, especially as an entrepreneur. Like it's so fun doing the launch stuff, and then it comes down
Yeah.
to the marathon. So
Yeah, that's so true. Like the adrenaline wears off of
the
like,
reality sets in. You're like, all
yeah.
right, now I have to do the work. But let's talk about your podcast. So what was the podcast about?
Yeah. So the podcast is called Ready on Repeat, and it's for leaders and high performers, helping you think, feel, and work better.
Nice.
And I think there's so much crossover between just anyone who's in leadership at all. We know that there's more demanded of you than simply like doing your job. And this is even like family life leadership. It's in any area of life. It really matters how you show up. And when you don't show up, people who are counting on you feel that. And none of us are going to get it perfect. It's just how it is. But I want to do the best I can to show up the best I can every day. And some days that's going to be a 10 out of 10. Some days the best I can pull off is a 4 out of 10. But I want to set my habits and routines up to work for me, not against me. So that's what the podcast talks about.
I love that. I think we always talk about balance between all these different aspects of life, but it's hard for somebody to see, where it's like, hey, they don't realize that, how you physically feel makes a huge impact on your work performance and your, work as a dad, and you not taking care of yourself in, spiritual ways and mental ways, in emotional ways and relational ways, is actually you not being able to perform. And
Yeah.
I don't know why that's so tough. Why do you think it's tough for people to understand just the connection that how you feel affects your work?
I think it's because we all idealize what we think we're capable of.
Mm.
And so when we're thinking about, we often confuse who we wish we were with who we actually are. And so then we forget to do the work to try to become that person we wish we were. And it's part ego, part idealism, but really I think there's also, and you'll understand this part a lot just with your fitness background. A lot of it is people just don't know. They just don't understand the biology of it all. That if you got 4 hours of sleep, you're not going to perform very well tomorrow. And like, yeah, you're going to know that and feel that, but you're going to keep doing it over and over again until you get that one night where you sleep like 12 hours and catch all up, and then you feel incredible. And you're like, oh yeah, sleep really matters. This is what a normal day feels like when I sleep enough. Like we have so many bad habits, and we're all guilty of this. Me too. We have a collection of bad habits, and we start to think that that's what life feels like. Yeah, exactly. And until we break those bad habits and start to introduce even one or two ones that are working for us instead of against us, and then we're like, wait a second, life can feel better than this. My body doesn't have to hurt this much every day. My brain can actually function a lot higher level than I thought. I have more mental energy available to me than I thought I did. And then it's not until we take those steps that we realize the potential that we have to show up better and better. And so I think it's that's probably the biggest reasons people just don't think about it, and they don't understand the biology of it. But that's okay. That's why we learn, and we just keep trying to put one more thing in place, you know?
Oh man, that's such a good point because well, especially your point about how, your self expectations may be way higher because you haven't experienced the thing. It's kind of like, they've done studies on having being in a fight. Like if you ask your average guy, like, how do you think you do in a fight? And they'll be like, oh, I think I do pretty good. And you're like, okay, well, how much fight training do you have? And they'll be like, well, I've never actually been in a fight and I've never done fight training, but I get angry and that rage will carry me through. And it's like, what? God, or sports where people
Yeah.
are like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
I'm gonna start a sport. I'm just gonna be awesome. And you're like, why?
Yeah. Golf will humble even the best athlete. I learned that one.
You're
Man,
like, I can
5
hit it
years in
hard.
and still terrible. Yeah. It's that it's the lofty expectations we have of ourselves and what we think we should in theory be able to do,
Mm.
that gets us in trouble and often keeps us from improvement, because we'll like it's that exact thing, um like it's why we have so many armchair experts about sports. Like
Ah,
you'll watch it,
yeah.
people will watch a basketball game when they had like, so I played in high school. That doesn't mean I can actually instruct these NBA players on what they need to be doing better. I'll be yelling at the TV like I could do it way better than them.
Shoot it.
Yeah, but it's not true. And like I couldn't do it, and I also don't understand 90% of basketball like they do, and like
Mm.
the game plan the team has. There's so much that goes into it, but I can. It's really fun for me to sit on the chair and just feel the
Fantasize.
feel the excitement of like, oh, I'm gonna yell at them and tell them what they should be doing better. You know?
Oh man. Well, and honestly, I think that, media has kind of convinced us that one, you could get hit multiple times in the face and it's not that bad. And yes, you can hang from a cliff for several minutes with somebody dangling from your other arm and then pull them up over the ledge and you'll be fine. In that situation,
Yeah,
you're totally gonna to find the strength somewhere. And I think
yeah,
it's if you do the physical side and you have trained for any amount of time or been a trainer, literally you could see people's capabilities just by watching them move. And, most
yeah,
people who haven't gone through that of the training somebody else and especially training yourself, there's just no way you could understand what they're doing. And you could apply that lesson to literally any skill where it's like, oh yeah, you think that
yeah,
you could build a house. Like, okay, well, go ahead and try to build a box, and then
yeah.
you'll learn.
That's so funny. Yeah, we don't do that. Why don't like we almost like we almost pretend like we should, because we're a black belt in one area of life, that we should be able to jump straight to that in every other area.
Yeah, why not?
Like like so growing up, I did martial arts for about 20 years, a little over 20
Oh
years.
wow.
And so I got my third degree black belt when I was in my early 20s. I was competing in national tournaments. I was fully in it. And so one, I'll tell you, it does hurt to get punched in the face multiple
It
times in a row.
does.
If you can avoid it, definitely try to. But also there's like different levels to things that we don't realize that until we get out of our normal comfort zone and our normal routines. Like when I was competing in local tournaments and winning those regularly, I thought I was the man. I thought
Just
I'm
amazing.
unbeatable apparently. And then I went to my first national tournament and just got smoked right away in the first round. And I was like, wow, this is
This is
and
different.
that's not even the guy who ended up winning the whole thing. I'm like, man, I'm not even close to like the level some of these people are at. But that drive made me train harder. It made me realize there's a bigger potential there than I thought, and there's always more to improve on. But I think we do that in a lot of areas of life where we or work, career changes, going from not being a manager to being a manager, or working inside of a company to owning a company. There's all these different stages, and if we're not careful, we will assume that we're going to go perform at the same level at that next thing, and it's just not the case. So we have to give ourselves the courtesy of white belt mentality. Go into the next
Mm.
thing with humility, and learn from the people around you. And you'll probably go a lot faster at advancing than the average person will if you have prior experience, but don't go in there with an ego or you're going to get punched in the face.
Yeah. Oh, well, you'll learn, and I think that's the lesson you could learn about all aspects of life. It's like, if you aren't willing to, be humble enough to realize that you don't have the qualifications and that there are people that are astoundingly better than you. And I think you see that when you look at like the masters of things, and they don't get upset with anybody who thinks they're amazing. They don't, take that ego and be like, oh, that's offensive to me because I know what it takes. They understand. It's like, okay, I remember being where you're at. That's cute. But I could tell you what's going to happen, or I could show you what's going to happen. It's your choice. And
Right.
it's true for all of it. Now, I will say the only part that doesn't apply, especially with business and life and all these other things, is when things are being revolutionized. And we're in one of those times where you have AI coming about, and
Ridiculous.
well, you have some people who are like, I'm an expert at this. And I always tell people, I'm like, I've been using it. I use it every single day. And I don't call myself an expert because I feel like I've barely scratched the surface of what's possible,
Right.
but that leaves me, able to take all of the input and have no self-esteem issues because I don't know
Right.
things, because I'll literally just
Right.
tell you, but that's
Yeah,
hard.
that's called humility. Yeah. You're so like you're practicing that when so many people want the attention or the accolades that come along with calling yourself an expert, which I understand, especially in like the world is competitive, and it is a competitive edge to be able to put expert on something, but does it actually, like, those things will often get you somewhere short term but sabotage you in the long run, because you're going to start getting passed up by everybody else when your ego got in the way of you being able to ask for help, or uh, buy a new course in something that you're already really good at, to get those
Mm.
few other tricks that are going to level you up. Just all those different things. And AI is definitely one of those areas, man, that is, like you said, it's revolutionizing everything. And I don't think we're going to realize how much for several years,
Mm.
but we're all feeling how rapid it is right now. Like, we're feeling it in especially in the marketing business industry.
Oh
um
yeah.
like we come from, it's like stuff is changing real fast.
Really fast. Well, and it changes in ways that are completely unexpected, and it's so fast. I mean, it's just like, you think you know how to do, like, it's the ChatGPT app. I was talking to somebody last night, and they're like, oh yeah, you know what I like to do is I like to hit that headphone at the bottom, and while I'm driving, I'll just query and have a conversation with AI and learn something that I never knew. And I was like, it can do that? Like, that's incredible. I
So
use it
cool.
I use it every day, and I didn't even know I don't even know when the capability came about, but I'm like infatuated with it now. I embarrassed myself. I was on the toilet and I was like, you know what? I could just set my phone over there and just talk to it. And then I learned stuff in the meantime. And
Oh
but
man, that's great.
but you have to be open to it. So how would you recommend to people who are like, okay, I've been humbled several times. It's getting annoying. How would you recommend people approach the situation of something new that's kind of scary, and doing it without any ego in the start?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. It's hard. You're not going to do it perfectly. I don't do it perfectly. I think what you were just talking about is really relevant, though. Humble yourself before it humbles you.
Mm.
Go in with to a new thing with humility, and then you're not going to feel all of those face punches quite as hard, because they're coming. Like, you can brace yourself a little bit. um and I think simply the attitude of humility um will offset most of the ego that's going to try to get in the way. um and that's probably the best advice I could give, that I try to take myself.
Mm. Now, let's talk about ego, because I think a lot of people don't even realize just how restrictive having an ego like that. Like, no, I'm the best, and I'm the most capable, and I'm the smartest.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, if you look at a lot of, I don't think they're as popular anymore, but there's a lot of motivational speakers that are like that. Like, no, it's about you. You got to just take the bull by the horns and blah, blah, blah. And I'm always like, what are you talking about? This is somebody who's never done the thing before. And you're saying like, oh, just go get it. How could you without well, how do you
Mhm.
avoid taking punches in the face while you still don't even understand that your ego is really driving 90% of your decisions?
Yeah, yeah, awareness is definitely part of it. Like look for it, know what your ego is. I think there is a lot of confusion between confidence and ego.
Mm,
And I don't know what the actual definitions are, but the way that I look at those two is they might feel really similar, but we should be confident in the things we have experience in and are actually good at, and or confidence in our ability to get there.
mm,
But ego usually tries to jump steps and say I'm already there when you're not. And so ego is a false confidence. So if you're finding yourself having to like puff yourself up,
mm.
um, you're probably leaning into your ego too much, as opposed to doing the hard work to become confident, which is going to be a more true emotion and representation of who you really are inside, instead of trying to pretend like you're already there when you're not. Kind of a fake it till you make it is very ego driven.
Ah, yeah. Well, and that, I was about to say that. I'm like, we've all been told that, oh, just fake it till you make it. And it's like, I don't think you should do that because then you're faking something that you don't actually already have. And you think that the reality will catch up with the fantasy that you've created. And a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
times it's way too far back there. It's never catching up. And now you may have built this reputation of an expert when you're not an expert. And eventually you'll be humbled. And when that humble comes, and again, it's going back to the martial arts, you see those, gurus, and it's like they'll go into like, oh, I could take on this MMA fighter, this average MMA fighter, because I'm a Shaolin expert or whatever.
yeah.
And then they learn that no, this is a totally different thing.
It's
It
very
does not
different.
cross
Yeah,
over. Yeah. And
yeah,
it sucks. The higher up you go, oh, maybe it's just the higher up you go with that fantasy, the longer you're gonna fall, or the distance between
yeah,
reality and the fantasy is gonna come together, and it's gonna hurt because it gets higher and higher.
yeah,
But it's
yeah. I think
like
that's
you've done it a
true.
few times.
Yeah, yeah. I do think that's true though. Um, yeah, and I think that's definitely true. It's like if you are a white belt and you walk in the ring with a black belt expecting to win, you're going to get injured. If you're a white belt and you walk in the ring with another white belt, you'll probably do okay. You'll learn whether you like win or lose. You're gonna learn something. It's gonna be safe for you. It's a
Hmm.
safe environment, and then you're gonna come out better. Or you walk, even if you're a white belt and you walk into a ring with a black belt with humility,
Hmm.
you can learn as opposed to getting the crap beat out of you. So there's
Yes.
1,000 parallels we can make there. But yeah, I think trying to avoid ego and so for me, I struggle with that a lot because I have seen I have tried to fake it till I made it quite a few times in business, and every single time it just didn't work because eventually you start feeling weird about it.
Hmm.
Most people, and that comes across in many different ways. And then if you do get chances that you were hoping you could get by faking it, you can ruin your reputation completely by not being able to perform like you said you could. And now there's a difference between taking a chance on something that's a little bit above where you're at. Like we all
Ah,
have to do that. That's just progression in life, and that's getting out of your comfort zone. What we've been talking about is the extremes of those two
yes.
things when you are really trying something new. But for me, I perform best when I feel confident, and I'm only confident in things I know. But there's also a level of confidence we can, self confidence we can display in the learning process of I'm
Hmm.
confident in my ability to learn anything that I put my heart into,
Ah,
or I'm confident that if I keep doing these steps, eventually I will be excellent. And so we can be confident in the ultimate outcome by being confident in the plan that we have in the process
hmm.
that's in place. So we can have a confidence there that will lead to an ultimate confidence and mastery of a subject or of a thing.
Imagine a world where your brand transcends visibility, embedding itself into the consciousness of your customers. Welcome to the AI Branding Bootcamp, where this vision becomes reality. Dive into AI-powered research, strategy, and execution to create a brand that's not just recognized, but felt. From crafting your brand's avatar to mastering AI-generated content, emerge with a brand that resonates deeply. Ready to transform your brand into an unforgettable experience? Join us at the AI Branding Bootcamp. The future of branding begins now. I love that. Yeah. Be confident that the journey is going to pay off. And if you have confidence in that, then yeah, you can achieve whatever you want versus like, no, I just have it all. I have the I have the mentality, and so magically it's going to manifest itself into reality. And it will, but it's just the work stages in between those two things that people tend to forget about. And it happens to the best of us. Like we talking about the podcasting. I've actually had a podcast. It was called the Mega Mad podcast for maybe 5 or 6 years. I actually started it because I had clients at the time when I had my agency. They were asking for a podcast, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to sell anything that I don't actually do myself. And so I just took it on myself, like, okay, I'll start podcasting. And I had zero expectations. And actually even my motivation behind it was really to just be able to serve other people in a more genuine way. Because I'm not going to tell anybody like, oh, I built enormous podcasts. Like it's incredible how well I do podcasts. and I never told anybody that. I said, literally, I've done mine. I'm not going to promise you anything because I haven't actually built an enormous podcast yet. And even now, like you talk about, like, I've done, I don't know, maybe between like 300 and 500 podcasts. And even then I'm like, I feel more comfortable, but I'm not going nuts. I hope so, but I know that the only way it's actually going to happen is if I continue to podcast, that I continue to develop. I review what's going right, what's going wrong. And again, it comes back to your point about humility, where it's like, I know I could do this better, and I could do it more genuine, and I could ask better questions, and I could listen better to the answers. Then maybe eventually I'll become like the expert in whatever. But even then, you fall back. This is my first kind of foray back into it, and I know you're doing the same thing. So can you kind of talk me through how you started your podcast last year, and why you think it stalled, and why you're bringing it back, and how it's going to be different this time?
So when I started it, it was and still is. It's more of a passion project than it is a business. Because I'm very much the type of person where the more I can, I just have an extreme obsessive personality, and I will go all or nothing. So in areas of life like high performance and leadership, I want those things to be, they're already things I think about all the time and I do in my own life, but I feel more I can learn faster if I involve other people and learn from other people. Podcasting is a great way to do that because you can meet people you wouldn't normally meet, have long conversations you wouldn't normally have. And then there's also the accountability factor, where if I'm talking about living this way to even a small audience, it makes me want to do it in the dark. Like that concept of, discipline in the light in front of everybody is usually pretty easy. Discipline in the dark is much harder when no one's looking, and no one will know if you did it or didn't do it. Or so I want to develop opportunities to be forced to be disciplined as much as possible, and on getting better at these things. And so the podcast is one way for me to do that. When I started it, so I started it by the first, if you go listen to it right now, the first 30 episodes are recap days of this protocol that I created probably 5 years ago or so, just for myself, called Committed 30. And the concept behind it is it's a discipline and a momentum builder for anyone to do by just checking the box on 5 daily habits for 30 days straight, and trying your best to have no excuses about it. Of course, there are extremes. I'm not an insane disciplined person where I'm like, if I missed one day, I have to start over. No, if I miss a day, I just do better tomorrow. But
Nice.
trying your best to do 30 days straight of these 5 disciplines. And I do it a couple times per year. And so what I did with the podcast is the first 30 episodes, I just recap each day. So they're 5 to 10 minute episodes where I'm just saying, I'm going through the list and saying, did I do these or did I not? And then talking through like a lesson that I learned that day, because there's always something that comes out of the struggle of something difficult. And so that's kind of where it started. And anyone that wants to check that out, by the way, it's not a program I sell or anything like that. It's just a protocol. But you can get a free download of it and learn how to do it at my website. It's dustinlien.com/30. So it's my first name, last name, Dustin, LIEN.com/30. And it's a breakdown of committed 30. But the five daily habits, they're really simple, but they're not that easy to execute always. So the first one is no alcohol. And it's just abstinence from alcohol to reset the liver, reset the body. So it's hard for most people, because a lot of people it's baked into our social experience of life. So it teaches a lot of lessons throughout 30 days, like how to tell people you're not drinking today, or break bad coping habits where you might drink too much during stressful seasons. I've been guilty of that. So that's the first one. The second one is no junk food. And that's I leave that open to interpretation. Yeah, because it's junk food means something different to everybody. And in the beginning of doing this and sharing this with friends, I tried to be really strict about what that meant. And it just it ended up making people not want to do it at all because it was too confusing. So whatever junk food means to you, just avoid it. And that's it's again hard to do, but also it helps reset your dopamine levels. So most of us use food to feel better, to have dopamine hits, and of course to eat. But junk food in particular, it's like having a candy bar it's not really for the sustenance of it. It's kind of relatively empty calories. Yeah, it's Snickers is delicious. But yeah, when we do it, it's usually because we're stressed out and it's some kind of coping mechanism to have a dopamine hit. So by resisting that, we start to reset our levels and learn how to find contentment and find joy in other things. And then the third thing is learn or practice something for 30 minutes. So 30 minutes a day. That can be reading a book. It can be like one time I took like 4 online courses and got certified in all these different things to help my agency sell more services. Like it's kind of amazing what you can do in 30 minutes a day for 30 days just by forcing yourself to sit down and do it. Fourth one is exercise. So it doesn't have to be long or a full workout. Just go for, even if it's a 10-minute walk, just do something active every day. It starts to set a habit and routine in your life that will repay you back for years. And then the fifth one is cold exposure. So if you have an ice bath or something like that, that's obviously an awesome way to do it. But if you don't, just do a shower, cold shower. The last 30 seconds of your shower, just flip it as cold as you can get it. Breathe through it. It gets easier. But that one's just a resilience builder. And there's a lot of health benefits to it as well. But in my opinion, like the coolest part about it is you never feel like doing it. On day 29, you're still not going to feel like doing it.
That's the best time to do it, by the way.
Yeah. It builds resilience, and it builds, back to confidence building. After 30 days of following the committed 30 protocol, you've developed a self-confidence level that you can do hard things and stick with it even when you don't feel like it. And that's really what discipline is. So it's cool, and it's really useful. And so I started the podcast that way, by talking through 30 days of all of that. And now I'm going to start bringing on guests who are experts in different fields to talk about habit building, different nutrition, and exercise things that are good for just feeling better. So I'm really obsessed with learning how to think better, learning how to feel better, and learning how to lead better. And so everything's going to revolve around that.
Oh man, I love that. Well, I love your whole process of doing it because I was like, oh, 30 episodes. That's actually a significant amount of podcast episodes. Most people I talk to don't get past like 5 or 10 before they're just like, oh, it's too much work. But I
Yeah.
think since you wrapped it up with a program, you had to do the 30. Otherwise, it's like if
Yeah.
you did 22, like everybody's gonna be like, oh wow, that
It's
was really
worthless.
good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Up until that point. And now I'm sorry I started and I'm angry at you. So
Right.
that's actually a great tip in terms of like if you want to start a podcast, like if you tied it up with a program and a lead magnet essentially, then man,
Yeah.
you'll get it done. And personally, I did the same thing. I actually had a DVD, if you remember those.
Nice.
That was and I was like, hey, I said I was going to do the fitness is function 30-day program, and I said I was going to post every day, and I'd never done that before, the consistent posting. And man, it was amazing, like the result of actually executing something and having somebody to follow something that's already built versus the like, oh well, I'll just keep
Right.
doing it, I'll build it as I go. And that rarely works. The only
Yeah.
actually I'm doing right now what I found, in terms of increasing the amount of episodes and getting back on the horse in terms of podcasting was, hey, I'm just going to leave these dates open. I'm going to invite all the best people I know, and hopefully they grab a date, and I'm just going to blitz it for the next 2 weeks. And so, like we were saying before, I think this is
Yeah.
episode 11 for the week that I've shot. And
Man,
just today,
that's
this is
great.
number 4. And I'm like, but if because I know how I am, I'm like, if I just said like, oh, I'll space it out, I know what would happen, which is I miss a day and then I'd be like, well, I missed that day. Like, yeah, I'll try to make it up.
Right.
And then you just fall off. So I think that's an awesome formula. And the system sounds great. Like I think I might have to do that because one of my goals, my physical goals this year was to dunk a basketball, which I should totally be able to
Yes.
do, and then to do a 1 minute handstand, which
Nice.
if you practice 30 minutes a day for a month, I think I could probably do both. Maybe I'll
I
split it up
bet.
15-15. But
I
that's
bet.
awesome. So I'm definitely going to check that out. And I think your tips are super practical, and a lot of times you wrap it up into like, well, you got to discover yourself before you could take on the blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, just do stuff. Do stuff
Right.
now. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Like stuff
goals will
like
come.
that's one of the like another thing I've been thinking about a lot with my business is just this, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with it. I go in seasons where I do and seasons where I don't, but like I've been in a season of trying to get like all the plan and the strategy just right before I start executing. um but I think like we do that in all areas of life where it's like before I go to the gym the first time, like I'm gonna get back in shape. Before I go though, I need to find the perfect plan. And so you like keep waiting and trying to
New
research like what the perfect
shoes.
plan is. It's like just yeah, put your shoes on and go run. Like just get out the door, go do something, and and then you'll find a plan, sure, but like don't let that be the reason you're not doing something. Just go do something. Something is progress.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, all those things are just excuses where you're like, well, I gotta do this and then I gotta do that. And oh, it's the end of the day and I can't. Oh, I have dinner
Yeah.
tonight. Ah, I didn't make it to the gym. But no, that's a great way to do it too. And I think and there are places for plan, but I almost think like most plans, if it's your personal plan, like you gotta be a different level of advanced to even be able to create the plan in the first place and then think that you're going to execute it. That's another higher level.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think what you're offering is the cheat code, which is just like, no, just do what I say every day. It's the P90X plan where it's just like, just stick the
Right.
DVD
Just go
in,
do this.
do what it says, and you'll be super ripped in 90 days or whatever. But that's fantastic. And I'm signing up. I'm going to go check out the website, get on the
Nice.
program, and listen to all the podcasts, because I think that's an excellent way to get started with the podcast. Just have that program in place, and then you'll execute the program. Even if it takes you, a few months to put it all together, your audience will really enjoy it. And now you have a launching off point to what you're doing now, which is, expanding it into guesting and different methodologies. And that's super cool. If you need a guest, I'm not an expert in most things,
I,
but I
I
know,
would I
I know
would love
some.
for you to come on. Well, you'd be a great guest because you have like No, I'm sorry. I'm going to toot your horn for you on your own podcast. But anyway,
I don't mind.
the blend of the blend of like just like business experience and leadership experience mixed with your fitness background is like perfect, because it's that blend of like, how do how does the body affect what we do in real life? Like how does like, if I eat garbage for lunch, I'm going to feel like garbage after lunch, and it's going to affect my work, which will now be garbage. If I feed myself good fuel, I'm going to be fueled for the rest of the day with my work. Like, it really, our biology really matters, and those decisions we make really count. And they count on a day-to-day basis, and they also compound over time. And so that's another reason why I like doing a 30-day protocol of cutting all that stuff out, because it, like, people, like, when you do it, you feel it. You actually feel a difference in your energy level. And the other thing I personally do is I always break it right after the 30 days on purpose.
Oh, yeah.
Because I also
really?
think it's important. I think it's important, and maybe this is just for my personality type, but because I'm obsessive, I will ruin my life trying to stick to these protocols that I made up. And instead of being a little more flexible with it, like, I'll get so intense about, like, oh, I did it for 30 days. Let's see if I can do it for a year. And then I'll start like neglecting my family, and all in the name of like being disciplined. But like, there is a balance to life, but this is a 30-day way to prove to yourself you have disciplines, you can do hard things, and it's going to bleed out into the rest of your life. But I like to just day 31, I'm gonna have a glass of whiskey and eat a Snickers bar. Yeah, like, let's break that, and then I'll go back to just living normally, but with a new toolkit and a renewed sense of self-confidence that I can do better, and I know how better makes me feel. Because that's the other thing, is like, it's kind of like leadership in general. I can't remember who said the quote, and I wish I could. I'm not going to quote it correctly anyway, but the gist of the quote that I like is, the essence of leadership is getting other people to get to a destination with you because they want to. Like, bad leaders will use fear and force to get people to
manipulate,
get to the destination, but a good leader will convince in a loving way to the people that are on their team that it's going to benefit them as well if we all get to this destination. And so it makes them want to do it. So creating the desire. And that's a lot of times what having a new experience that makes you feel better than you've ever felt before, motivates you to get that feeling again. And so it's positive reinforcement, and that's what I like about it.
Excellent, man. Well, and those are fantastic points. And I love, the break, it's, you don't have to push it forever. And honestly, you're not qualified to. And for me, I gave up alcohol, like 2.5 years ago. And it wasn't like, oh, I just decided like I'm stopping alcohol. It was literally like a 5-year process of, getting rid of types of alcohol, and then giving it up for a month, and then giving it up for Lent, and then giving it up for a year. And then eventually it got to the point where it's just like, wow, I really, there's just no desire anymore. And
you
it
prefer not to. Yeah.
I prefer not to. I know now.
Powerful.
I have the physical experience of knowing exactly what it does when I don't drink for this amount of time and that amount of time, and this type of alcohol, not that type of alcohol. And so it was literally out of my knowledge that I was able to now be like, nope, I don't need that ever again. And it doesn't bother me. It's not tempting. I don't have to pour out all the bottles and do all the dramatic giving up forever stuff. I'm just like, now you could, and I don't feel uncomfortable when other people drink around me. It's totally fine. I just don't, it's not something I need to do. So I think you have some fantastic perspectives. Your program sounds awesome. Your podcast sounds awesome. And I look forward to checking it out. What was that website one more time?
It's Dustin Lien, DustinLien.com/30. And that'll get you to the protocol.
Awesome. Well, I'm signing up today, so you'll see me making comments on your stuff. Great.
Nice. All right, I'm gonna send you a link to come on the podcast.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dustin. Really appreciate you. Really enjoyed working with you when we were at Digital Marketer, and I'm very excited about what you're doing what you're doing now. I think you got some really good perspectives and some awesome experience, and I think you're going to do awesome. So I look forward to watching that happen and
All right,
or
thanks,
continue
Mark.
to happen.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thank you for listening. This has been Podcast Mark. And tune in next time for more random talks that end up being about philosophy and life and fatherhood and all the other things that you don't think a business podcast would be about.